Hi, I'm Linda from paperboutiquewithlinda.com. A few weeks ago, I did a video on how to use silhouette sketch pens, and I made this card and envelope. I love the silhouette sketch pens. And be sure to visit my YouTube channel to see the video to learn the basics when using sketch pens. Well, knowing how much I love the silhouette pens, you can imagine how happy I was when Amy, let me move this, from Chomas Creations sent me the adjustable pen. I'm going to get this out of the way here. The adjustable pen and adjustable pen and marker holders to try. I'm all about options, and these wonderful tools gave me lots of new options when working with the Cameo. In fact, I think she's a genius. In today's video, I'm going to talk about these new tools and show you a few samples using different pens and markers. And when we move to the computer, I'm going to give you an overview on how to use the sketch function. But like I said earlier, please be sure to visit my YouTube channel to see the video on how to use the silhouette sketch pens for more basics. Well, let's talk about her wonderful pen and marker holders. This is her pen holder, and it is wonderful. Let me show you. I'll bring in some pens that you can use in it. And I'm only going to show you a few of the pens that work in this holder, but please go to her blog or her website, www.chomascreations.com, and she'll show you how to use even different pens. My favorite, and I'll show you a sample of it later, is this white Jelly Roll pen. And all you'll do, and we'll also go over this on the video, is to center, and centering it is very important. And then you're just going to tighten this screw when it's in the machine, and you are able to use the white Jelly Roll or any Jelly Roll pens in your Silhouette Cameo, as long as you have this pen holder. You're also able to use the Staple Mini Gel pens, and once again, the thing to look for when you're doing this is that they're centered. Not all pens will work, but if you're able to center them, I found those give you the very best results. Now, I have to admit, my gel pen from Staples didn't turn out perfect, and that's not the problem. It's not because that there's a problem with the pen holder. These are about 3 years old and they skip horribly. So the new ones will work wonderfully. And I also used my Copic multi-liners. I used both sizes, and they fit. Oh my gosh, look at that. They fit perfectly and are centered. So you're able to use those as well. And like I mentioned earlier, there are many more pens that will work in this pen holder. Now, I also did a happy dance when Amy sent me this wonderful marker holder. I don't know about you, but I have a gazillion Sharpies, and I love my Sharpies. Well, they fit, let me just show you, they fit perfect. Whoops, I have that screw tightened in there. I think you can see that as I'm adjusting it. They fit perfectly, and you can center them nicely. And I came up with a way to use them where they won't bleed through the paper, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But I love the fact that I now have the flexibility with the pen holder and the marker holder. Well, at this point, I'm going to pause the video and let's go ahead and move to the computer where, like I said earlier, I'll show you an abbreviated version of how to use the silhouette sketch pens, and then I'll show you actually how to use Amy's pen and marker holder. Well, I went ahead and opened a file that I had in my library, and what I'm going to do at this point is just send it to the Silhouette Studio, and we're going to do change settings. And if you want a more comprehensive video on how to use the sketch function, please look in my YouTube channel, and we're going to click here and change the setting. And I'm using an older version of the Silhouette Studio Designer Edition, but you will go down and click on Silhouette Sketch Pen, and then I like to use a speed of 6 and a thickness of 9 for most of the gel pens. I also like to do a double cut, and that just ensures a good clean line when you're drawing. And then I like to make sure that the sketch pen is selected, and then I will go ahead and click cut. and send it to the Cameo, and then I'll show you in just a minute how to load the Chomas pen into the Cameo. But I also want to mention that if you're experimenting with different types of pens or markers, you might want to take a really simple image like this and use it in Designer Edition to trace it before you do a more elaborate cut. Well, at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and pause, and then I'll show you how to load the pen holder into the Silhouette Cameo. Now I'd like to show you how to insert the pen holder, and the marker holder will be the exact same method. First of all, you're going to have the 3 ridges at the top, and I've already removed our blade holder. And what I like to do is keep this screw to the front so I can adjust it. So I put it in and then I lock it. Now, when you get the blade holders, or I'm sorry, when you get the pen or marker holders, you'll also get a little popsicle stick. Well, I replaced that with a larger popsicle stick because it's easier for me to remove. The next thing I'm going to do is just slide the popsicle stick right under the pen holder. And in this case, I'm going to be using the Staples pen, and you can also use any of the other pens I talked about, or any pen as long as it's centered. You're going to adjust this screw so that the pen goes down and rests on the popsicle stick, and then you're going to tighten the screw and make sure that the pen is in the center. That's very, very important. And if it isn't in the center, or your pen isn't in the center, you're not going to get an optimum result. So I went ahead and tightened the screw, and then I'm just going to slide this, and it's a little tricky at first to slide it out. And then I'll put my mat in with my paper, and I'll go ahead and push the cut button, and this will draw the image. Well, at this point we're going to pause, and I'll get back with you and show you the final results. Well, here are our finished samples. For this sample, I used the white Jelly Roll pen, and I used a thickness of 9, a speed of 6, and a double cut. I like to use a double cut when I'm using the Jelly Roll pens or any gel pens, because even if you're writing with a pen, you're bound to get some areas that are too light, and I just like to use the double cut so it goes over it twice and you get a much cleaner look. Well, I had so much fun with this one, I went ahead and did another test, and this is using the same settings, a thickness of 9, a speed of 6 in the Jelly Roll pen, and just a more intricate design, which I really liked. And then I thought, well, I'm going to try even a more intricate. And this is just a sample from one of Samantha Walker's cards, and look how detailed that is. Isn't it beautiful? And it worked using the pen holder and the Jelly Roll pen again. Well, then I thought I would try the Copic that we talked about earlier. And with the Copic, I did a pressure of 7, or I should say a thickness of 7 and a speed of 6 and a double cut. And I thought that worked really well with both of the black pens I talked about earlier. And here's the one, well, let me show you the pens again. These were the Copic pens. I used the multi-liners. And one was 0.3, and the other one, let me check on that, is 0.5. And then next, I used the Staple Gel pens, and the reason it's a little lighter here is, like I said earlier, these pens are very dried out and would hardly write. So you really do need to buy new gel pens if you're going to be doing this, but the Staples pens will work perfectly. And then lastly, I am so thrilled about this. We talked about the Sharpies. And this is the technique I used for the Sharpie so that it wouldn't bleed through. And this spot was on the back, it didn't bleed through, and you can tell. What I like to do with the Sharpies is use a speed of 9. So it doesn't have time to penetrate the paper, and a thickness of 9. But be sure when you're using the Sharpie that you do not use a double cut. And you're going to want to experiment with different settings and try out different pens. But I found the pen holder and the marker holder from Amy at Chomas Creations to be just superb. Well, like I said earlier, you can buy these amazing pens and lots more at www.chomascreations.com. Amy's blog has lots of great info on how to use these pens and her recommended settings and wonderful tutorials. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and please visit me at paperboutiquewithlinda.com for more projects and ideas. Bye-bye.